Alright, I've kept you guys waiting for way too long. Let's finally talk about Green Lantern. Green Lantern, one of the first superheroes in the established DC universe. One of the founding members of the Justice League. One of DC's legends. The most forgotten legend. Hello and welcome to the Cosmic Collective. My name is Noah, and today I'll be discussing the rise and fall of the Green Lantern. There was no better time to be a comic book reader than the 2000s. It was a time before the characters were multi-million-dollar properties, a time before event comics ruined everything, a time before every character was forced to be something that they're not. And above all else, it was the greatest time to be a Green Lantern fan. Before the 2000s, Green Lantern, the character, had been drugged through the dirt. In the 40s, Green Lantern, named Alan Scott, was nothing more than another masked man of mystery that every comic book company had. Then, when he was remade in the 50s, Green Lantern was treated like all the other sci-fi heroes around. He had a hot girlfriend, an exciting job, and neat powers. Everything a pre-Marvel character had. Then in the 1970s, sales began to decline on Hal's book. Eventually, they teamed GL up with another green hero to put attention back on his book. The run became pretty legendary, but it wasn't enough, and in issue 89, the Green Lantern solo series was cancelled. GL was then reduced to being a backup feature in the Flash comic for around 4 years, before returning with his buddy Ollie. Hal coasted for another 3 years with Ollie before Green Arrow was eventually removed from the book. The 1980s would see increased involvement from the other two Green Lanterns at the time, John Stewart and Guy Gardner. And then the 90s came to ruin Green Lantern's book, as it always does. First, Hal dates a 13-year-old, then Superman dies, and the comic sells like gangbusters. And DC realizes the key to comic book sales, changing the status quo. All of a sudden, DC heroes were getting changes, the most famous of all being Batman Nightfall. The second most famous being the destruction of Green Lantern's city, Coast City, by Mongul. Hal goes insane and kills all the Green Lanterns, stealing their rings and becoming the supervillain Parallax. A new Green Lantern is created to carry on the book, but the image of the character most people are familiar with was destroyed. Then, 2004 comes, and an up-and-coming comic book writer by the name of Geoff Johns is given the reins to Green Lantern. Hal is returned from the grave, and the Green Lantern comic is revolutionized with the introduction of the emotional spectrum. All of a sudden, Green Lantern was a flagship title for the first time in decades. There were Green Lantern events and all sorts of new merchandise. Hell, Johns' work on Green Lantern was one of the only two titles not to be interrupted by the New 52, the other being Batman. And then Johns finishes his run, and Robert Venditti is brought in to finish the New 52 run. And it's from 2011 onward that the redestruction of Green Lantern begins. While the comic side of Green Lantern dropped down from an A-list title to a B or even C-list title at times, the other media was not kind to the Emerald Knight. This isn't to say Venditti's run is bad per se, it's just it wasn't as famous or as popular as Johns' run. After the insane success of Johns' run on Green Lantern, it was decided that Green Lantern should launch a DC cinematic universe. So a Green Lantern movie was made, and well, we all know how that went. Johns' run, as well as the movie, inspired a TV show on Cartoon Network that ran for a season before being pulled due to the poor performance of the film. One blemish on the character's history began the beginning of the end for him all over again. Hal and the other Lanterns began being phased out of the other DC media, mainly both cuts of the Justice League movie. If he wasn't phased out, he was turned into a joke like in the Lego movie. Back in the world of comics, DC Rebirth's Green Lantern books are ending. In fact, all of Rebirth is. And Green Lantern is being relaunched by Grant Morrison. Now, Grant Morrison is an incredibly cerebral writer with lots of wacky and out there ideas that are super tied into previous continuity that's really obscure, which in my personal opinion makes their comics incredibly inaccessible and hard to read. It also causes problems for other writers picking up where they left off, often causing quite a bit of rebuilding of the characters afterwards. Anyway, rant aside, Morrison writes Green Lantern for all of 2 years before ending in May of 2021 with little to no major fan love or hate. The book was almost irrelevant, not really on many people's radars. The story of Green Lantern has become the story of many major superheroes from both companies, completely dominated by the outside media's depictions of them rather than the other way around. Green Lantern is in a place where almost nobody knows what to do with him or cares about him, despite him being one of the most important superheroes in the DC universe. But hopefully the new run by Geoffrey Thorne can dig this legend out of his grave once and for all. Hey guys, sorry this video took forever to make. I probably won't keep you in wait as long. I know what I want to do next, if that helps. So, yeah, I don't know when it'll be out, but it'll be out hopefully soon. Yeah, talk to you later. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.